Hey guys, so here's a little follow-up from the video I published earlier on setting up our Kubernetes cluster on our Raspberry Pis. So I've been doing a little bit more work on it this afternoon. So where we left off in the last video, we had our cluster of Pi set up, which just consists of two at the moment. We had our head node and we had one worker node. And as I mentioned, I'm using one Pi which is not part of the cluster as a Pi hole. Which is our DHCP server, DNS, and ad blocker and so on. Now, I also, where we left off, we'd installed Grafana, and now I want to show an example of the type of dashboard that I'm running here in Grafana. So basically we built a dashboard here where we can see temperature of our the CPUs. So these are the two nodes that we have. We're showing percentage change over the time period of the CPU temperature and a graph of the CPU temperature here. We've also then got some stats on our total cluster. So each one of our Pis is running an ARM64 which has 4 cores. So as we've got 2 of them, we've got a total of 8 cores available. We've got a total of 469 gigs of storage, currently using 24.3 of it. Over the past 30 minutes, we've increased the amount of storage we've used by 0.471%. This is the number of cores that are actually in use at the moment, so we've not got a lot of services running on our system right now, so obviously we're not using a lot. And the total amount of memory used and available. And then we've got some data here on our network. So this is network packets in and out, CPU use by various namespaces. So we can see that by far the one that's using the most is our Longhorn system, which is our persistence drives, and the next one along is monitoring. So these are our two most heavy use at the moment, because they're really all that we've got running. Everything else is just the basic services. We've got Rancher running, and everything else is just the basic services which are not consuming a lot of resources at all. Now once we start running some more intensive stuff on this, obviously Longhorn and monitoring are not going to be using quite as much of the resources percentage wise. And then kind of the same can be seen here for the memory. So Rancher followed by Longhorn, and then the most memory is actually being used by our monitoring system at the moment. We can also then view various pods, so individual pods that we've got running, and the CPU usage of those, so we can see individual pods, and so on. So basically we've got a bunch of different kind of stats that we can get here. We've got a few different dashboards to choose from, but the one that I particularly like using is this one here. So in addition to that, we also have Rancher running. So I've got that running on a separate Pi as well. So I'll do a tutorial on how basically you get this set up, but it's not too difficult. So basically at the moment I've got 4 Raspberry Pis. We've got one of them is the Pi hole, which is our router and internet gateway. We've got a K3S master, we've got a K3S worker, and then we've got Rancher. So Rancher is really useful because this is basically used for administering our cluster, and what we've kind of got here is another Kubernetes cluster running within Rancher. So it's running its own Kubernetes cluster here, which we can see information on if we click on it. But then we've got our Raspberry Pi cluster, which I imported into here. So this also gives you some basic stats, a bit like what we had there in Grafana. So total kind of CPU usage. Again, you can see here we've got 8 cores. We're using 0.19 of those cores at the moment. Amount of memory that we're using, number of pods that we've got, capacity of 220 pods. We've currently deployed 42. We've got 18 deployments, 2 nodes, and this was created 5 hours ago. And here in Rancher as well, you can go in and you can see, you know, things like workloads, jobs. You can see the daemon sets that we've got running. You can see individual pods. So you can actually go into those pods and you can edit things through here as well. So you can go to edit the YAML, and you can begin to edit the deployments here. Now, a really cool thing is that I can make edits here, and you can actually roll back as well, which is nice. So when you make changes as well, you can press show difference and it will show you what it is you've changed. And when you're done, you can click save. But you can also roll back to a previous version. So if you make, so this happened to me earlier when I was trying to get temperature monitoring of the Pis working. I modified the Prometheus monitoring node exporter, and it went into a crash loop, and it wouldn't come back. And so rather than having to go in and kind of undo everything you did in the YAML, there's a rollback function where you can just go back, which is quite nice. So that's you know, what Rancher is used for. So that's quite useful there. And then probably most of what I've spent this afternoon doing is figuring out how to get forwarding set up properly. So basically, I've got kind of a little complicated setup. So I've got the Kubernetes cluster, Rancher, and everything is all on its own network on a 10.5.5 subnet that connects up to the Pi-hole Pi. And the Pi-hole Pi has a second Ethernet which goes out to the 192.168.100, my home network. So I can mess around and do whatever I want on the Pi network, and it will never bring down my main network. But obviously I need those to be able to get out to the internet, download packages and so on. And I also want to be able to get in. So I want to be able to access this Grafana dashboard, say, from my cell phone, which I've now been able to do. But that required setting up some IP tables on the Raspberry Pi, which is running Pi-hole, and doing some forwarding there, and then also setting up some DNSs in Pi-hole as well, and pointing those in the right places. But then I was having a problem because I was accessing everything on say Grafana.cluster DNS, and I couldn't get through to Grafana, and that's because Pi-hole itself is running on port 80, and so when I was coming in on port 80, it wasn't forwarding properly. It was kind of forwarding to its own website, so I had to use a different port. So now if I want to access Grafana from outside, I need to go to Grafana.cluster, but then I still need to input a port number, which in this case would be 8080, and that then takes us to the Grafana cluster when I want to get on it from my phone. And the same thing will be set up for other services once we get those up and running. Ultimately, what I want to get on here is an MQTT broker, a web server. I'm taking some data from a little project I'm working on here. So here is breadboarded out. This is a weather station that I'm building. It runs off of a Arduino Nano. So this is going to all be put into a weatherproof box. I've got a few other things to add to this. We'll make a nice printed circuit board. And this is going to be sending data over Wi-Fi to my home network, the 192 network. But I need to get that data then into my Kubernetes cluster to store it there. And then we'll build a website that will throw up that weather data. So that's one of the projects that I'm working on. So next video, I'm going to tear down what I've done. Hopefully I can remember how to recreate it. And we'll kind of go through how to actually get this up and running on your own system. So thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.